3 weeks ago, Dr. Dresner and I, along with Washington Youth Soccer, presented the proposal. Welcome, everyone, to the 19th episode of Jimmy and Kyle Show. As always, Jimmy McAllister joining me here. How's it going, Jimmy?
It's going just peachy. You know, we're out there watching practices. We're socially distanced. We're in our group of fives. It's magnificent.
There's no sarcasm in that.
No, it's just, boy, I'm glad I'm not a kid right at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, like everything else, it's like me. It's getting a little bit old, you know.
Well, why don't we tell everyone what we're going to talk about today, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, and then I hope everybody has actually said, because we're working with a moving target here. But I have to say, yourself and John Dresner has done a great job of being very diligent, weekly meetings with the governor's office and doing everything we can do to get this back to play safely. Getting back to play is one thing, but getting back to play safely is another thing. So I can assure everybody out there in Jimmy and Kyle land, all three of you, that we are doing everything we can, and we've been diligent trying to get the kids back on the field. So,
yeah, and I think it's also important to probably clear up some misconceptions and some rumors that have been going around about when we're coming back, when this announcement's going to be made, what's going on, because there's a lot of different organizations and people that are taking someone's words and twisting them a bit and saying, oh yeah, the announcement's going to come out on this date and we're going to be back on this date and we'll be rolling. And it doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah, it's hard. And I've heard rumors out there that people think I'm in my 30s. I'm not. That's just a rumor. I'm much older than that. So I wanted all these misconceptions. All these misconceptions about me being in my 30s are incorrect.
There's a difference between a misconception and a lie.
Sometimes the line gets blurred, my friend. Trust me.
Yeah, gray area. Okay, so basically what the deal is 3 weeks ago, Dr. Dresner and I, along with Washington Youth Soccer, presented the proposal that I think probably most people have seen now, that is posted on the Washington Youth Soccer website and has made its rounds through emails and social media and whatnot. That proposal went to John Snyder at the governor's office, who is the director of outdoor recreation, youth sports, pro sports, kayaking, golf, all that good stuff. From there, he reviewed the document, and then 2 weeks ago, he sent it back to us and said, I want you to make these changes. I want you to include this stuff. And at the beginning, we had basically only asked for training to be expanded, but Dr. Dresner had a conversation with Mr. Snyder, and they both agreed that, you know, really the games are safe as well. You know, there's all these studies out there right now. Dr. Dresner was just published with a study from our club. University of Wisconsin put out a massive study from 34 different states. North Carolina came out with a study, and so on. And they felt like, you know, through all these studies, basically no one had contracted it or it was transmitted through trainings, through games. And you got to realize a lot of these other states are playing games, they're going to trainings, and there's not been but one recorded case, and that is, you know, still kind of up for debate, I think, over whether it was transmitted there or somewhere else. But they attributed it to that. So of the 90,000 kids that were a part of this study, there was one case of transmission, and it went no farther than that. So we went through, revised the proposal, and basically asked for phase 3 guidelines for soccer and other sports to be brought into phase 2 because it was deemed safe. Snyder agreed. We sent the proposal back to him 2 weeks ago. I think people thought that because we did that, all of a sudden an announcement was going to be made within a few days, and it's simply not the case. government takes time. There's many chains of command. There's many reviews it has to go through. On Monday of this week that we're finishing right now, Mr. Snyder sent Dr. Dresner, myself, and a few other people the draft from the governor's office, because they've got to take the proposal. They have to put it into their language, format it their way. And they sent that back to us. And to be honest, it was quite pared down from what we had put in our proposal. We had put a lot of specific things in there and how to safeguard things, but they felt like there were too many things that we put in there, too many restrictions. So they scaled it back a little bit and changed a few things that actually I think people will be pleasantly surprised with. So we sent the edits back on Tuesday. I talked to Mr. Snyder Tuesday, asked him if there was any sort of timeline or anything he could give me, because obviously people are chomping at the bit to get back out there, and it also helps with planning. He said there was no timeline, that on Wednesday it was going to internal review amongst the different agencies within the state government. And again, that takes time. I did hear through the grapevine, through someone at the governor's office that is not actually involved in this, and someone at the City of Seattle mayor's office yesterday, that Snyder had a meeting with them about other topics, and he had mentioned the fact that the guidelines for youth sports in general, not just soccer, would be coming out soon. Again, no timeline. So when you hear someone say, hey, it's going to come out on Friday and we're going to start training on Monday, it's not the case. There is no timeline. There is no specified date for when these things are going to come out. And I know that's frustrating for a lot of people. It's frustrating for us, but we are getting closer. We have made a lot of headway. I mean, I think Dr. Dresner and I and Washington Youth Soccer have been meeting with him for 6 months now. And finally we are seeing kind of the fruits of our labors there, and it's starting to come out. So when you hear people talk about it's going to be this date, that date, it's going to happen here, it's really just rumors.
And really, Kyle, and tell me if I'm speaking out of turn, the governor's office makes the decision, or the governor makes the decision. Then it goes down to the municipalities and local areas. So it goes on from the governor, and the governor okays it, Mr. Snyder okays it, and off we go. Then it comes to local government. So the Seattle mayor or the Bothell mayor or the mayor of Snohomish or whoever has a word. And then you have to have the fields opened by the schools or the parks department, and superintendents have a word because their kids aren't in school. So it's not quite as simple as Inslee saying, hey, you're in, you can play, off you go. There's other layers to it. So when you do get back to play, you might be in a league where some of the areas can't play and some can. I mean, I would hope that they would open it up if the governor found it safe to play. We've gone over and over this with John Dresner, and as people know, John's got a couple kids in the club. There's no way he would say it was safe to play if he didn't think it was safe to play. Those are his kids.
Yeah.
So, but in the end of the in the end of the day, there's more layers than just one person okaying it. Yeah. Then you've got other parks department people laid off or furloughed, and you got to bring them back, and they can't start right away. So there's a whole big deal to getting back to play that lies beneath the surface that people don't understand, or people aren't privy to, and it's frustrating for us. But the first step is obviously the governor saying, "Hey, these are well thought out protocols. You guys have done a good job. The RCL and the RCS and our league and our state, you guys have done a great job in setting the protocol. This works. Now you can play." But then it goes to a whole nother level of, I guess you could call it bureaucracy if you like, but it goes to another level.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can pass all those levels, and it's not as easy as just one person on a Friday or a Saturday saying you guys can go back to play.
Correct. And you're absolutely right on that. So, it's been an internal review since Wednesday. Department of Health looks at it. There's a couple other agencies who said that we're going to look at it. So even the document that John Dresner and I got may not be the final document that comes out. I think it'll be pretty close to it. They may make some minute changes to it, some formatting changes. I didn't think it read all that well, but all the information was in there that needed to be in there. So they may format it a little bit differently and change some wording. But you're right in the fact that even once Governor Inslee comes out and says, okay, here are the new guidelines for youth sports, that does not mean that everybody is back to playing immediately. The next step that has to happen is each individual county has to come in and say, yes, we approve these new guidelines and we're fine with them. The county could always choose to put more stringent guidelines in place, or they could say, nope, we're not going to move forward with that. But if you look at the way phase 2 went, all the counties were basically on board with what the governor had said. So I don't think there will be a hang up within the county situation. And I sent the proposal actually to King County 2 weeks ago in preparation for this so that there wasn't a delay. I sent it to the city of Seattle as well, again, to get ahead of it so there's not a delay. But
so Kyle, in saying all this, and I don't even know what these phases mean. Phases to me are a made up bunch of stuff that, you go to phase 1, you go to phase 2. Why don't we go from phase 2 to phase 8? I mean, it doesn't. Yeah. But now they've got a different criteria. Each county is looking at some numbers, and the numbers are there for everybody to see if they want to see those. So can you go over the numbers and what they're really looking at and what they're gauging this off of instead of phases or this phase and that phase? What's the numbers and where do you look at them, and what's a good number, what's a bad number? And each county's in a different position. Am I correct? Pierce County can be different from King County, different than Whatcom County, different from Eastern Washington. Can you explain that really quickly for the parents?
Yeah, so they're not going to go with this. This is a modified phase 2 or a phase 2.5 or anything like that. They're not going to look at youth sports that way. They're going to look at it in the sense of metrics. And so when you talk about the metrics, they're basically going with school guidelines as well.
The metrics is that English way of measuring stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, they call it football, but they don't measure in feet. Why don't they call it meter ball?
I don't know.
I don't know. That was a bad joke. But so they're going to use these metrics, and basically the metrics that come out. And first, they've identified what low risk, moderate risk, high risk sports are. Correct. So low risk, you have golf, you have tennis, swimming, and some other sports like that. Moderate risk is soccer, baseball, sports like that. And then high risk, you've got wrestling, you've got tackle football, you've got rugby, I believe, is in there as well. And there's a list of what those sports are on the draft that Mr. Snyder sent to Dresner and I. And then below that, you've got what each sport can do within the different metrics. And the metrics are basically 25 to 75 cases per 100,000 people on a 14-day rolling average. A lot of people have seen that metric. Department of Health has dashboards that you can find these metrics.
So that's where they'd find the metrics. So we're all looking at the same thing.
And
each
what
county,
we'll
I
do
believe, is different, right?
Yeah. And what we'll do and that's through the state website. What we'll do is we'll post the link that Mr. Snyder actually gave me to be able to monitor the metrics. We'll post that link on the show today.
That would be helpful.
Everybody can monitor them, and you can look at them and know where each county is, what your county numbers are looking like, where the trends are going. So on top of that, they're also looking at what your positivity rate is. So anything below 5% is good. Anything above 5%, you're getting into an area where your county or your local municipality or your field provider could say no. So you have to be within that 25 to 75 metric per 100,000 on a 14-day rolling average, and you've got to be under the 5% positivity rate.
But let me go back. You said the positivity average, and where your county or your fields could say no. They can say no matter what these numbers are.
You could be at 0 and they could say no.
The difference is the numbers give them a reason to say no, but they could say no even if they want to say no. Yeah. So, unfortunately, the powers that be at times don't really need reasons or measurables to say no. They can just say no. Hopefully, with these metrics, we can look at the metrics and say, well within the safety or the positivity rating, and please don't say no. Yeah. Right? But there's no given there. There's
Yeah,
no given.
you're
This is a
still
government deal.
basically negotiating with them to
Correct.
get them to say yes.
But I think it's good for our parents to be able to look at the same scale and see where we're at in
Right.
terms of rates and so many per millions or thousands or 100,000s, and the positivity. It's there for everybody to see. That's not a I feel this way or I think this. That's a positive. That's an actual number. So
to give you an example, I checked yesterday, last night on all the numbers. King County was at almost exactly 50 per 100,000. So right in the middle of the 25 to 75. That number is actually slowly going down. And our positivity rate, which is even, more impressive, is 1.9. So we have a very low positivity rate. Pierce County was at 58 cases per 100,000. So within that metric, theirs has been bouncing around. Their positivity rate's been bouncing between 4.7 and 4.8. It got down to 4.5 at one point. And then Snohomish was around 38 per 100,000, and they were at 2.6. So where the meat of your clubs are for the NPSL and RCL in Pierce, Snohomish, and King counties, those counties are within the metrics. Now, for RCL teams that are worried about travel over the mountains, Spokane County is nowhere near meeting the metrics right now. They're at 130 cases per 100,000 and just under 12% positivity rate. Yakima is actually per 100,000 is relatively close, but
hey, Kyle, it's Yakima, not Yakima. It's Yakima.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah. Thank you.
You know what? When I moved here, I could not say Puyallup. It was the most difficult. I kept saying Puyallup, like Puyallup. What?
I get it. That's a tough one. That's a tongue twister.
And then Franklin County, where Three Rivers is even higher than both of those. And to boot, you still have to be in phase 2 technically for these metrics to be there. Yakima and Franklin counties are both in a modified phase 1.5. So anybody worried about having to travel over there right now, you wouldn't travel over there. They're not supposed to come play games here. The RCL, which you're in the RCS, which you're a part of, will determine those things as we go. But I believe those will be scratched now.
It would seem to me that if you meet the metrics, the phase doesn't really matter. If your parts per 100,000 and your positivity rate is okay in qualifying, that's where you get away from the phases. And this is phase 1.5 or 1.75 or whatever.
Right,
the science says that here's how many are infected per 100,000. That's the science, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that the phase is irregardless, but we may be able to be up and playing. King County may be up and playing and not be able to go to Pierce County. Or Pierce County may be up and playing and not go to King County. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a lot like what we're even seeing in pro sports to a degree, where games will get delayed, games will get rescheduled, depending on one team may not be affected by something, but another team may be affected by something, and it may come at the last second. But yeah, Spokane County's phase 2, but they're not close to meeting the metrics, so they wouldn't be able to play those games, and we wouldn't travel there. And post November 1 anyway, there is no travel east of the mountains for RCL teams. The mountain teams travel here. So there's no concern about traveling really at this point with those. But yes, it's all about the metrics right now. So like I said, I sent this to King County and City of Seattle proactively. King County, last time we went into phase 2, was right on it. And as soon as the governor announced it, King County allowed clubs to go in. Where we got hung up was with the City of Seattle. The mayor and the superintendent of parks came in and said, no, we're not going to allow field rentals to happen until July 1st. So we were 2.5, 3 weeks behind everybody else on that. We are currently, myself, Chris Tesson, the president of the board, you, Jimmy, and maybe a couple other people, Dr. Dresner and maybe one other person, are going to try to meet with the mayor's office and her staff this week to explain to them why we believe this needs to move forward as soon as the announcement's made, Like you said, it's more of a plea than anything. But hopefully we'll be able to gain some ground there. And when the announcement is made, we won't be delayed.
No, and Ed, Chris Tesson's done a good job in setting up that meeting. I think it's imperative we meet with the parks because we are the number one user of fields in the greater Seattle area. We pay the most rent, we use the most fields, and it's critical for us to have a good relationship, whether we're doing the coronavirus or whatever's going on. But we have made progress. Like I said, John Dresner, our head of our medical advisory committee, has done fantastic work. The board's worked hard. Everybody's done everything they can to get back to play. So, real quick, Kyle, can you go over a few of the modifications that we've proposed? There's been proposed that the parents might see. Is it the same? Is the sidelines limited? Can you have throw-ins? Can you every time you boot the ball, do you have to clean your shoe, or what are all the protocols?
Yeah. So originally in the proposal that we had sent, we weren't going to go as far as Massachusetts, who took away all throw-ins, corner kicks, stuff like that. We basically said we'll get rid of corner kicks because that's where you typically have a congregation of people that happen in a box, and we'll use kick-ins at that point that are not allowed to enter the box. So no long balls into there. Governor's office came back, said no, that doesn't need to be a part of it. We feel that the time spent in close proximity to someone is not long enough, which is true. We were going, I think Dr. Dresner and I were going above and beyond on that in recommending some of the things. So throw-ins will take place, corner kicks will take place. There's you sanitize the balls before and after games, basically. The coach, I know we have to move goals sometimes, especially for the mod games. The coach will be the one responsible for moving the goals, or coaches. That way we're not having a lot of different people touching the goals and moving goals and touching equipment. There's not going to be a coin toss from the referees. The referees actually just came out with their protocols as well on how they're going to handle things. So we're incorporating that into our game day protocols. And by the way, we have game day protocols that I wrote a long time ago, and we've modified them as we've gone. And clubs will receive those whenever the governor does make his announcement and we see that final document.
This is all fine and dandy. How does this affect the parents on the sidelines?
Parents on the sidelines. In the proposal that they sent back to us, in the draft they sent back to us, parents are allowed. It is one parent per player. And parents have to be at least...
What happens if you have two parents?
Technically, they want one.
Some kids have more than two parents. I mean, is it one? Is it a guardian? Is it a chaperone? One per child?
Parent, guardian, caregiver. It is supposed to be one parent on the sideline. I'll say it that way, on the sideline. A lot of these fields have fences, and you can watch games from outside the fields and that. We're not the COVID police. We're not going to, hammer down on people, I don't believe. But the other key to this too is, even though the state government says yes, spectators can observe the games from the sidelines, the county could come in and strike that down, or the city could come in and strike that down as well. So we have to be careful of what we're promising, I think, people. But right now, spectators are allowed. They've kind of gotten rid of for the games, the 50-person maximum, which allows those parents to each be there, because that would put you on an 11v11 game. That puts you up around 70, 75 people. And they said that was fine because they felt like there was enough room around the field to socially distance. There's got to be 6 feet in between each parent, 10 feet back at least from the sidelines, just to give the kids some space. When a ball goes out of bounds, they've got to get the ball, throw it in. We're asking parents not to grab the ball when it goes out of bounds, but parents will be allowed. They need to wear masks on the sideline, just like
as coaches
when we come to training. Coaches as well are wearing masks. Kids are still coming to the games and leaving the games in their mask. There's not going to be any long post-game speeches like I know you like to give, Jimmy, and talk about how the game went minute by minute. As soon as the game's over, coach.
No, I used to like
players,
to bring up
so.
how it was in the 50s. That was more fun. The kids really enjoyed that.
Playing on Centrex and
Yeah. Oh yeah. I used to ride my bike to training 30 miles. It was fun.
Yeah. So, and actually like I said, the orders that they sent, or the guidelines that they sent back to us for review, really were very general and very minimal. They identified, what could take place in terms of activities within each level, and they identified what spectators could do within each level. But outside of that, there wasn't really much that is any different than what we're doing now in terms of masks and protocols like that.
Perfect.
So,
and I think it's important that the parents are able to go to the games if you can stay socially distanced.
Sure. Yeah.
Be able to watch their kid. It's all part of the deal. I mean, I used to enjoy watching my kids play when they played. It was a lot of fun. So we don't want to take that away. No. On another note, Kyle, I'd just like to introduce that we are going to introduce a new program. It's called the Extra Time. It's a professional speaking series that we're going to do for the parents and the kids if they want. I know probably when this comes out, the first one will already happen, but we have John Dresner going to speak about the coronavirus in general and how it affects youth sports and so on and so forth. We have a sports psychologist from Stanford, one of the leading sports psychologists in the country, coming in. We have scouts from the U.S. national team going to speak. We have some nutrition, cooking type classes that might be fun for the parents to tune into. And we'll keep trying to bring up topics that the parents are interested in. We'd like all of you to tune in. We feel that as a club, there's more than just the kids playing. There's a bunch of different elements to the club. And if you're a community asset like we're trying to be, you have to multifunction in a bunch of different areas. So I think the speaker series is going to be really cool. I'd really like to hear sports psychologists, how to deal with children. I know that as a parent, I made plenty of mistakes with my son and my daughter. I've heard 1,000 times about the car ride home. Well, I mean, we've all been there. We all have high expectations for our kids. And sometimes, it doesn't really relate to what the kid's wanting to do or what's the proper way to go about things. And John Dresner, our first speaker, has just done an outstanding job for Seattle United in terms of this virus and giving us support and helping us along the way of how to operate. So I'm really excited for the Extra Time speaking series. It's going to be cool. Yeah. I hope everybody tunes in. I think there'll be some good topics.
Yeah. That I think that's just another value added, right? That we're getting to and paying attention to, and I'm not the biggest fan of this word, but the holistic approach to the player and and not just player but the family. And so, especially during this time when, parents have a lot of questions and a lot of questions on the return to play, on coronavirus, on returning to play in games. That'll be the next big thing that we see is there may be families that say, you know what, I'm not quite comfortable yet. And that's okay. We need to know. And we're here to answer your questions. And Dr. Dresner can answer those questions on that podcast, hopefully. So,
well, it's like anything else. It's down to personal choice. And like I said, we've never really been upset with somebody that made the choice not to play, or they felt it was in their best interest not to play, or, sit out a little bit. I mean, obviously we have to move forward. We have to have teams. We have to put teams together. But I would never criticize anybody for making a choice they felt was right for their family. Right. At the end of the day, this is youth soccer. It's not, we're not doing something that's, creating a world peace or anything or solving hunger. We're youth soccer people. And I do think that from the remarks I've gotten from the parents is that we keep providing physical education and something for the kids to go out and do. And I think that's important, that a lot of the things, karate classes and swimming classes and all this is dried up. There's not much out there for the kids to do. And when they get the chance, boy, they're busting at the seams. I will tell you that I was a little bit disappointed last week in my go-arounds at training with kids coming to training without masks. I mean, everybody tends to slack off a little bit, including myself. And I'm probably the one that has to go back when I try to go into Safeway or something to get my mask. But it's important that we follow these rules and do it professionally. I know the kids are tired of it. I know the parents are tired of it. We're all tired of it, but we have to do our part to keep everything safe. And I find that the older kids, the kids that drive, are less likely to show up with their masks than the kids that ride with mom and dad. So if you can mention to your kid, hey, make sure when you get out of your car, put the mask on. It's not the end of the world, but you know what? You might save yourself from getting ill or save somebody else. And we need to do the right things because there's people watching. For example, at Lower Woodland, Seattle Parks office is right there. Yeah. They walk in and out all day long and see our kids coming, see our kids leaving, see how we're training. And that's where they get their opinions from, because they're not going to go to 104 different fields. They're going to stand outside Lower Woodland and look what's happening. And that's their picture of what's really happening. We all know that's different. But, you know, when you start showing up without masks, it shows a lack of attention to detail. And we can't afford to have that. We need to be more professional in that. And the coaches need to be the first ones to take care of that. And, you know, maybe if you can mention to your kids, if you're driving yourself, put your mask on before you get out of the car and join training.
Well, it's also going to be very important as we do come back into these games that we follow these guidelines, because if we're not, and Parks does show up like you said, and this is a systemic issue, Parks could turn around and say, you know what, we're going to shut it down. People aren't following the protocols. People aren't doing this. We don't think it's safe. We're going to shut it down. So we need to get back into the really good habits of making sure that when the kid gets out of the car, player gets out of the car, they are walking to the field in their mask. They're leaving the field with their mask. They're using their hand sanitizer and whatnot. That way we can make sure that we aren't shut down again. And it may inevitably happen, but we've got to do what we can do and control what we can control in order to. There's no question, right from the beginning, our parents has been fantastic in terms of the training sessions and and keeping socially distanced. The kids have done a great job. I'm not trying to take away from the efforts they put out. It's just that you tend to get a little bit sloppy and a little bit lazy, and we can't afford to have that. Right. Anything else we need to touch on with the return to play, you think?
No, I would hope by the next time we speak, we'll be back on the field and returning to play. Kudos to Alex Chersky for the curriculum he's come up with this 5-man, 5-girl, 5-kid combination of play. I know it's frustrating when you're in a group of 5 and 2 of the kids don't, for whatever reason. Now you're in a group of 3 and you can't do much with that. Rich Reese and you, Kyle, on the boys and girls side have done fantastic. The regions are holding together. I mean, we've had some, people move on because they want to play and so on and so forth, but we're in good shape. The board has done a great job at showing leadership through this time. We want to be here for when it gets back. We want to be here when we get playing. Everybody wants to play, including myself. That's what I do on the weekends in the fall. I miss seeing the little guys up at Jefferson play. Yeah. And we're all biting at just chomping at the bit to get out there and play, but we have to follow the rules and orders. So I thank everybody for their patience. I thank you for continuing to support Seattle United, and I thank all the coaches and the directors and so on and so forth for doing such a good job. And the kids especially have been really good during this stage. They've done better than I ever thought they would with this kind of stipulations put on training and so on and so forth. So it's been a pleasure to work with the kids through this.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So thanks, everyone. Hopefully next time when we see you, we'll have some great, fantastic news for you, and we'll be that much closer to getting back out on the field.